On a stormy Tuesday night, Arthur, one of the wealthiest real estate moguls in the state, made a mistake. It wasn't a financial error. It wasn't a bad investment. It was a mistake of the soul. When he opened the heavy door of his fortified mansion and saw that shivering animal curled up on his welcome mat, Arthur didn't feel pity. He felt disgust. He pointed a finger into the darkness of the storm and screamed 3 words that would come back to haunt him in less than an hour. "You don't belong here." Arthur slammed the door, locking the problem outside. But what he didn't know is that by locking that door, he was actually locking himself in with his own death, and the only key to his survival had just been thrown out into the rain. To understand what happened that night, you have to understand who Arthur was. He built an empire from zero. He learned from a young age that the world is divided into predators and prey. To Arthur, showing compassion was like showing your neck to the guillotine. He lived alone in a 10,000 square foot mansion. No wife. She left years ago, tired of his coldness. No kids. They stopped calling when they realized their father cared more about the S&P 500 than their birthdays. That night, a record-breaking storm was battering the city. The lights flickered. Arthur was in his kitchen, pouring a glass of 50-year-old scotch. The silence of the house was his greatest achievement, and also his greatest curse. That's when he heard it. A low sound, a weak whimper coming from the main entrance. Something was scratching against the expensive mahogany door. Anyone else hearing that sound of desperation would feel their heart break, but Arthur just felt annoyance. "Who dares interrupt my evening?" he thought. When he swung the door open, the wind blew rain into the foyer, and there he was. A medium-sized stray, mud-stained and shivering. He was skin and bones. His ribs were visible with every ragged breath. One of his back legs was held up, injured. The dog didn't growl. He didn't try to run inside. He just looked up with brown eyes filled with infinite sadness. That look seemed to say, "I have no strength left. Please." Arthur looked at the animal and saw only filth. He saw bacteria. He saw imperfection. In his twisted mind, that dog was a reflection of everything he hated. Weakness and dependency. Get out of here right now," Arthur screamed, his voice competing with the thunder. The dog cowered, trying to make himself invisible, trying to melt into the mat. But Arthur showed no mercy. He used the tip of the umbrella to shove the animal. It wasn't a gentle nudge. It was a brutal push. The dog yelped, lost its balance, and tumbled down the porch steps, landing in a freezing puddle on the driveway. Arthur watched for a second. The animal tried to stand, slipped in the mud, and just laid there under the pouring rain, staring fixedly at the warm-lit doorway. Arthur felt a sick sense of satisfaction. He was in control. "Trash belongs in the street," he muttered, slamming the door shut and turning the double deadbolt. He went back to the living room, cranked up the volume on his surround sound system to drown out the storm, and sat in his Italian leather chair. He felt victorious. But the universe has a funny way of collecting debts. 20 minutes passed. Arthur was savoring his scotch when he felt it. It started as a tingling in his left arm. "Must be the cold," he thought. But seconds later, the tingling turned into a piercing pain, like barbed wire being pulled through his veins, straight to his heart. The crystal glass slipped from his hand, shattering on the marble floor. The sound was sharp, but Arthur barely heard it. He tried to stand, but his legs wouldn't obey. He collapsed. There, on the cold floor of his multi-million-dollar living room, the powerful tycoon became a scared child. He tried to scream, but no air entered his lungs. A massive heart attack. He looked around. The expensive furniture, the million-dollar paintings, none of it could call 911. None of it could hold his hand. He was dying, alone. Exactly how he lived. Arthur's vision began to fade. The edges turned black. He thought, is this how it ends? No one will know? No one will care? The answer seemed to be yes, but then... a noise. Glass shattering in the laundry room. Arthur thought it was burglars. "They've come to rob my corpse," he thought bitterly. He heard quick footsteps, nails clicking on the hard floor. Click, 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 click. Those weren't human footsteps. A figure appeared in the doorway, wet, dirty, bleeding slightly from breaking the basement window to get in. It was the dog. The same dog Arthur had kicked into the mud. It was the dog. The same dog Arthur had kicked into the mud. The animal ran toward him. Arthur closed his eyes, expecting a bite. Expecting nature's revenge. After all, it was the law of the jungle, wasn't it? The weak predator being devoured. But he felt something warm and rough on his face. The dog wasn't attacking. He was trying to wake Arthur up. The animal realized what was happening. He licked the tears streaming down the millionaire's face, mixing them with the rainwater dripping from his fur. Seeing the man wasn't reacting, the dog did the only thing he could. He threw his head back and began to bark. A deep, loud, desperate bark. He barked relentlessly for minutes. His throat must have been burning, but he didn't stop. The noise was so intense and the dog's frantic movement was so erratic that it triggered the motion and glass break sensors of the internal security system. At the monitoring center, miles away, a red alert flashed. Intrusion and suspicious activity, main hall. The operators and EMS suspecting a violent home invasion in progress. When the paramedics stormed the living room, they found a scene they would never forget. The richest man in the city collapsed, pale, on the verge of death. And standing over him, growling to protect the body, was a dirty, injured stray. The dog wouldn't let anyone near until he realized those men were there to help. Then he stepped back, lay down beside the stretcher, and rested his muzzle on Arthur's cold hand. Arthur was in a coma for 2 days. The doctor said if help had arrived 5 minutes later, the heart damage would have been irreversible. The alarm triggered by the dog was the only reason he was alive. When Arthur woke up, the first thing he asked wasn't about his stocks or his company. He asked, "Where is he?" The nurses broke hospital rules that day. They let the dog stay. Arthur looked at the animal, cleaned up, fed, but still bearing the scars of a hard life on the streets. Arthur wept. For the first time in 40 years, the Ice King cried like a baby. He whispered, "I kicked you out, and you came back for me." Why? The dog just wagged his tail. Arthur adopted the dog and named him Lucky. But everyone knows the lucky one was Arthur. That day killed the arrogant millionaire. The new Arthur used his fortune to build the state's largest no-kill animal shelter. He learned the most valuable lesson of all, one not found in any economics book. Money can buy a house, but it can't buy a home. It can buy security, but it can't buy loyalty. Sometimes angels don't have wings. They have 4 paws, wet fur, and a heart capable of forgiving the unforgivable. If this story touched your heart and you believe dogs are the purest souls on earth, please hit that like button. It helps this message reach more people. And tell me in the comments, what would you do if you were the dog? Would you have gone back to save the person who mistreated you? Subscribe for more stories that matter. See you next time.